Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our press conference here on the important issue of the Holocaust and Holocaust education in the Commonwealth, as well as to show our solidarity with Israel in the aftermath of the horrific terrorist attacks of October 7th. We will open with prayer from our good friend Mitch Treisman of the Zar Shalom Fellowship. Brother, come on up.
I'm wondering if I can ask everyone to stand and help me as I try to recite the undying watchword of the Jewish faith. Those of you who know it, please chant with me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod, Malchutzo, Le'olam Bo'ed. The God and our Father, we say to you, Shema, we can't help but think of the next verse. V'yahavto et Adonai v'hol nashachom miodecha. Shall love the Lord our God with all our heart, all our soul, and all our might. And it's not our love that has sustained us all these years. It's your love for us. And we thank you so much for your protection and preservation, bringing us to this season. And as we think of this season, we can't help think of Passover and Purim, and Passover coming up upon us really quickly. Pesach, of course, remember how you delivered us out of the hand of Pharaoh, who would have us drowned out and annihilated in the sea. At Purim, we think of how you took us out of Haman's plot to kill us in Persia. And from there we go from Haman to all the other pogroms and evils upon our people to Haman. From Haman we go to Hitler, who tried to destroy us in Germany and in Europe. And from coming forward, we even think of Hamas and the Holy Land. Through that, you've protected us, preserved us, and kept us. And we thank you. Thank you for the truth of the fact that the keeper of Israel neither slumbers or sleeps. And to you we pray, Shalom, Shalom, Yerushalayim. We pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Father, we thank you for your preservation. Thank you for your love. Thank you for keeping us. With humility, we ask now that you might bless our proceedings today. We ask that you'll bless our state. We ask you to bless our nation as we bless your holy name with thanksgiving. We love you. Baruch Hashem. V'imiru. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. And thank you, Mitch, for driving all the way to New York City to pick up our keynote speaker today. You're a real hero for us here, and Rebbe and I appreciate you. I'm joined today by my wife, Rebecca. Goes by Rebbe, not Rabbi. So my wife, Rebbe's here. You can tell how much we love Israel by that, right? That's fantastic. And on October 7th of last year, we all know what happened. The horror, the murder, the rape, the barbarism. And we just have to ask, never again, question mark? The worst, most horrific catastrophe of the Jewish people since World War II. What happened to never again? And then many in Pennsylvania and the United States have the audacity to blame Israel, wrongly accusing Israel of this occupation and all this other nonsense, and skipping over the atrocities of Hamas and justifying it. And some of the worst cases that I've seen are on Pennsylvania campuses, universities, and colleges. We saw the fecklessness of the UPenn president when she was refused to condemn the horrors of the terrorists, refused to stand up for her Jewish students. That we have in America today, that if you're Jewish in some parts of the United States, you won't feel safe, is appalling and repugnant to me. In America, we should all be able to walk as free people. William Penn came to this colony and established Pennsylvania as somebody who was a religious dissident who went to jail 6 times for his Christian faith, and he wanted to establish a place of freedom in Pennsylvania, whether you're Jew or Gentile, that you could walk as free men and women and not worry about a pogrom or somebody coming after you, looking over your shoulder because of your religious beliefs. So it is time that we say never again, and never again is now. It's chilling for us that some of the similar rhetoric that's preceded attacks on Jewish people in Europe in the 30s, we're hearing in the United States. And I say never again, not on our watch, and it's up to us. As newlyweds, Rebbe and I were stationed in Nuremberg, Germany in the late 80s. And as you might remember, in the 80s, Nuremberg was the heart and soul of Nazism, where those parties with the torches and the parades were assembled. And We were there for the 40th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. And we remember in Germany, especially Nuremberg at the time, but across Germany, the guilt and shame shared by the German people, many of whom were alive in 1938 and lived through that and did nothing and allowed the atrocities to happen against the Jewish people. And we remember the somber commemorations where synagogues once stood, where plaques went up, never again, where the foundations were painted on the ground to remember the synagogues were there. Plaques went up where Jewish people were dragged out of their homes. In a 48-hour period, the 9th and 10th of November 1938, this is when the Nazis revealed their true colors. Yes, there was anti-Semitism, but this is when they came out of the closet, where on Kristallnacht, 1,000 synagogues were destroyed across Germany. 7,500 Jewish-owned businesses were destroyed. 30,000 Jewish men, going down to 16 years old, up to 60 years old, were arrested and thrown in camps. And nearly 100 were killed in that lawless two-evening event. So I say, never again. It's shocking to me that just 36 years later or so from that 40th anniversary commemoration that Rebbe and I witnessed in Nuremberg, that it seems like we've forgotten already. We've forgotten. It's up to us not to forget. So never again can't be swept from our collective memory. I spent a lot of time in Warsaw when they became a NATO member and stood on the spot where the Jewish uprising occurred in 1943, where Mordecai and others took their own lives as their resistance was being collapsed and crushed in the ghetto. I stood on the Übungsplatz, where 250,000 Jews in Warsaw with Polish assistance were removed out of their homes and sent to camps, most of whom who died. This is deadly serious, and we have to be insistent that never again. The shocking thing is, a poll came out in December that a fifth of Americans ages 18 to 29, the next generation, believe that the Holocaust is a myth. Are you kidding me? Our kids are being indoctrinated and they're being uneducated. It says in the book of Romans, St. Paul wrote, a famous Jewish scholar, by the way, he said, professing themselves wise, they became fools. And that's what we're becoming, but foolish to the intent that it's to our own peril and the peril of our neighbors. The Holocaust is indeed a fact, and we're joined today by a man who experienced it firsthand, and we'll hear shortly from Sammy to tell us his story. Sadly, Holocaust deniers are not new. The Holocaust deniers existed in Nazi Germany. My Uncle Joe was with the 4th Armored Division. Thank you for your service there, brother. Name enough. 4th Armored Division, my Uncle Joe was the only survivor of his tank during the Battle of the Bulge, trying to relieve our boys trapped in Bastogne, and he was a hero to me. It was his influence that led me to join the Army. And anyway, he was with the 4th Armored Division liberating several camps. And when they liberated Dachau, he was shocked to hear that the villagers in a neighboring town of Dachau denied that they knew anything happened there. They chose to look the other way. And General Patton and General Eisenhower were so outraged by this general trend of Germans denying they knew what was going on that orders went out that every German in the neighboring areas, no matter how young or old, would be marched through those camps and forced to see and even participate in the cleanup of the deaths. So it's imperative that future generations learn about this genocide, where over 6 million Jewish men, women, and children died. Sammy told us that he lost about 40 members of his own family that he knows of on one side, can't even account for the other side of the family. Could you imagine? When we think about the barbarism of October 7th, that it occurred on not only on a Sabbath, but on a holy Jewish day, it shows you how insidious the wickedness and evil is. The scourge and ideas that drove the Nazis or the pogroms in Russia, or Haman in Persia, that same spirit's alive today, and we have to stand against it and say never again, and be active in opposing it. The horror began, of course, on October 7th at the Nova Music Festival, where young men and women from around the world, and not all Jewish. Israel's a multicultural, multi-religious nation, the only one in the Middle East where you could live out your faith without persecution, by the way, where about 400 innocent kids were killed with bloodthirstiness and the horror and hate of Hamas. shooting in houses in the local kibbutz after that, killing residents, killing pets, burning people alive in their homes. It hasn't changed much from 1943. So we have to stand up and say no. In October, shortly after the horrific events and the attacks in Israel, the Senate unanimously passed my Senate Resolution 185 to stand with Israel. It was unanimous. At a time when Republicans and Democrats are after and at each other's throats, I was happy to see that on this important moral issue, we stood unanimous in our support for Israel and against the terrorists. So the main purpose of this event today is to announce legislation leading to the teaching, mandating the teaching of the Holocaust in our schools in Pennsylvania. George Santayana wrote in 1905, we know this quote, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We aim to ensure that in Pennsylvania, it doesn't happen here. As William Penn would have it, this would be a free state where men and women can walk underneath the convictions of their own faith and their own ideals without any fear of retribution." Just about a decade ago, Act 70 was signed into law to establish a Holocaust education framework in Pennsylvania. We're joined today, and I'm honored to have you guys here, by Rhonda and Alan. If you guys can wave. Rhonda and Alan, they paved the way for us here in Pennsylvania. And back then, their intention was to mandate education of the Holocaust in our schools, but it was watered down, sadly, in one of the chambers, and so we're going to correct that. So thank you for your work a decade ago to pave the way, and let's get it done the right way and completely this time without any amendments, hopefully. So keep us in prayer on that. So my legislation builds upon your excellent work. My bill, Senate Bill 1100, was created with the support and help for our great friend, Alexandra Levine. If you can raise your hand there. Thank you. And Alexandra's work, of course, led the way in her state, Maryland, to make it happen down there. So thank you for crafting this legislation. Rebbe and I sure do appreciate your efforts here to ensure that the next generation doesn't experience the horrors of the World War II generation. Getting choked up. So Senate Bill 1100 will ensure that the next generation understands the horrors of the Holocaust and that once again, never again is now. So with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker and a good friend of Rebbe and myself, Representative Stephanie Borowitz of the Fighting 76th District.
I'm honored to be here. Good to be back with Doug and Rebbe again. And the House has several bills, also legislation, to make sure we never forget. So I'm honored to be here. I'm not even sure that I'm supposed to stand in the same room of someone that has lived through such atrocities but yet made it. And so thank you. When Hitler rose to power, he controlled the airways. He used a parliament fire to jail any dissenters and disarmed a populace. Do we see any parallels to today? And Hitler eventually then killed 6 million Jewish people. I have talked to World War II vets who came upon concentration camps with tears in their eyes. I have seen pictures a World War II vet took personally when they came upon concentration camps. I listened to a podcast to another survivor of the Holocaust, and her dad told her she was 18 years old and she lied so that they wouldn't automatically kill her. And her dad said, "Say that you're 18." And she said, "I'm 18 years old." So she lived, and her dad told her, he said, "You must live and make it out of here so you can tell them what they did to us in here," as a warning. I heard another podcast and a survivor tell us to make sure we keep our guns and our ammo in America. She said, "Make sure you keep your guns, but don't forget you gotta have ammo with the guns." A Holocaust survivor, you can't even find it now on YouTube. They've hid it, so you can't hear it and heed the warning. May today stand today as a day of warning for us in America. May we heed the words of the Holocaust survivors to never let dictators that use evil through deceptive words take over in dictatorships. And may our torch and our flame of liberty burn brighter in the days to come, understanding what is at stake when evil men once again use deceptive words and actions to bring harm on others. Well, here today, we have history in front of our own eyes. Today, we'll hear their stories, and may we listen to their words and their warnings and stand with the Jewish people to never let these atrocities happen again. Thank you for having me. I'm honored. I want to make sure I get pictures with you. I told my sons today just, to go and to actually be with someone that's living history of what they went through. Heroes that stood in the face of atrocity and overcame it, and then lived to tell us and to heed a warning from them to never let something like that happen again. Thank you, Senator Mastriano. Thank you for all that are here. We stand with Israel and the Jewish people always. Thanks so much.
Put my glasses on so I don't miss. So next, we're going to have Alexandra Levine, who will sing a rendition of Our Father, Our King. So please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. Would you like to share some words with us as well?
Thank you again for having me today. Thank you so much, State Senator Doug Mastriano. Thank you for everyone that's here. Thank you so much, Sammy, for coming all the way over here. It was a pleasure to reach out to you, and I am so happy that you are my friend, and I am so happy that you are here today. God bless you. March 22nd of this year marks exactly 91 years since the first concentration camp, Dachau, was opened. More than 28,000 people were murdered between 1940 to 1945. On my father's side, his relative Reuben Friedman met his wife Sylvia at a concentration camp in Germany. They survived. My father's other relative, Aaron Friedman, came to this country before World War II, but for some reason he wanted to go back to Europe. But what happened was, when World War II happened, his decision by going back to Europe led him to die in the hands of the Nazis. Reuben Friedman was my great-grandmother Ethel Friedman's nephew who survived, but Aaron Friedman was her brother that unfortunately died. On my mother's side, the majority of her mother's family was killed, wiped out in Warsaw, Poland by the hands of the Nazis at Auschwitz. My mother's brother-in-law's mother was a survivor of Auschwitz with her mother for 2 years, living in the sewers to survive. Her name was Irina, and the last several years of Irina's life, she would tell her story in Poland, Israel, and the United States. Today, we stand at a pivotal moment in our shared history, a moment that calls for reflection, education, and action. We are here to discuss and advocate for a crucial piece of bipartisan legislation, a bill that mandates comprehensive Holocaust education in our state's curriculum, in this state's curriculum. This legislation is not just about preserving the past, it's about safeguarding our future against the recurrence of hatred, bigotry, and intolerance. The Holocaust, one of the darkest chapters in human history, saw the systemic extermination of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime during World War II. This genocide also targeted millions of others. The horrors of the Holocaust were not incidents of history, but the results of unchecked hate, propaganda, and governmental complicity. Fast forward to the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, a homeland for the Jewish people in the aftermath of the Holocaust. Israel's founding was a beacon of hope for survivors, a place for displaced persons to rebuild their shattered lives. However, Israel's history has been fraught with conflict, necessitating a nuanced understanding of its geopolitical, cultural, and social dynamics. This bill before us seeks to address a gap in our educational system. It aims to ensure that students in Pennsylvania are not only aware of the historical facts surrounding the Holocaust, but also understand the lessons these events teach us about human rights, dignity, and the importance of standing up against oppression. Recent reports have shown, as State Senator addressed, a disturbing rise in anti-Semitism and ignorance about the Holocaust among the younger generation. Studies indicate a significant portion of young people are not aware of basic facts, such as the number of Jews murdered or the existence of Auschwitz, one of the most notorious death camps. This lack of knowledge is a direct threat to our collective memory and sets the stage for history to repeat itself. This bill is a step towards countering this ignorance. It mandates comprehensive education on the Holocaust, ensuring students learn about the causes, events, and aftermath of the Holocaust, as well as the history of how Israel became a state. This education is vital in cultivating empathy, understanding, and a commitment to preventing such atrocities in the future. This is not a political issue, it is a human issue. Education on these topics transcends partisan lines and unites us in our commitment to truth, justice, and the rejection of hatred. By passing this bill, we send a powerful message that Pennsylvania is committed to truth, education, and the moral imperative of remembrance. In conclusion, I urge all members of this esteemed legislative body to support this bill. Let us take this step together, not just as legislators, but as educators of future generations. Let us equip our youth with knowledge, empathy, and the crucial understanding necessary to build a world free from hatred and intolerance. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Alexandra. Our next speaker is Rabbi Joseph Kolakowski, Hasidic rabbi. Thank you for driving all the way from across the state to be here with us. Affectionately known in his community as the Koblenzer Rebbe, not Rebbe? Like my Rebbe? No. You received your ordination from Lander College in Queens, New York. My dad was born in Brooklyn, not too far. And of course, you serve as a chaplain in nursing home, prisons, and hospital. And Rebbe and I are so thankful for you. We count you as a friend, and we're honored to have you. So please, Rabbi. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Of course, I pray to Almighty God that I should bless and sanctify His holy name, and I appreciate these times that we have together. And I really thank Senator Mastriano for inviting me here today. Our friendship has gone on for a little while. This is the first time we met in person, but we've been in contact for a while. In Deuteronomy 32, verse 7, we read, Zechor Yemos Olam, Binu Shnos Dor V'Dor. Remember the days of old. Understand the years from generation to generation. Ask thy father, and he will declare unto thee, thine elders, and they will tell thee. So learning about history is not merely an intellectual pursuit, an academic pursuit, but in truly a way that can transcend all various religions or even no religion at all, a spiritual one. And I know that Senator Mastriano has his doctorate in history, and he understands that history, the study of history, is not merely that academic pursuit, but again, a spiritual one. And that when we study what happened in World War II or the Civil War, any time in history, it can be just as spiritual as when we, as Jews or Christians, read the books of Samuel, the books of Kings, or when Christians read the book of Acts, and study that history and understand the lessons that one generation can go to another. And that word of understanding is something that's crucial, because if we really understand, we won't be fooled by the types of lies that are often seen in the world. I was very blessed that my family, all of my ancestors settled here in America, in this great country, before World War II. And so thank God all my grandparents were born here. On one side, my grandmother's father's family, they actually settled here in this Commonwealth, I believe sometime possibly before the Civil War. I visited their graves up in a little Jewish cemetery in McKean County in Bradford. And my one grandfather served in World War II, another grandfather served in Korea, served this great republic. But I grew up with survivors. They were my teachers, they were my mentors, they were my friends. And we're so thankful for the ones that we have left, like Mr. Steigman here. And I wish you many more years, bis 120 und noch weiter, until 120 and much more. You should leben zu sehen Mashiach. But so many of those who I knew, they're not here anymore. They're gone. They're with our Father in heaven and reunited with their parents. I remember one of my teachers, his father was a survivor, and he told him that he said that his father said, if you put these tefillin, the prayer phylacteries, on every day, even in the camps, and he was in Mauthausen, and he went through, he was shot in the leg, and he survived, and he made it through, and he just passed away a few years ago, and got to see children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And he said his own father said, I won't see you, when they took him away, I won't see you again in this world, but if you put on these prayer phylacteries every day, I know I'll see you in the next world. And I got to hold those prayer phylacteries at the Shiva house, at the wake, at the mourning house. And I should note something. As the senator mentioned, I work in chaplaincy. I serve this Commonwealth and New York State, where I reside, as a chaplain. And I see in chaplaincy a beautiful example of how different religions can live together, how we can all coexist. Today's the first day of Ramadan. We're in the middle of Lent in the Western Christian calendar. And we started the month of Adar as we're heading toward Purim and Passover, times of great joy in the Jewish faith. The first person who called me, as the senator mentioned, it was a holiday, it was a Jewish holiday, it was the last day of Tabernacles and the Sabbath, so I wasn't using my telephone. The first text message I got, and then an email to make sure I got it, was from an imam who served with me in both this Commonwealth and in New York State as a chaplain, to apologize and say that this is not what Islam stands for. And I'll tell you something, my family, it's not so popular, but I'm saying this for a reason. My children, they go to the Satmar schools, which they don't believe in Zionism. They would be called anti-Zionist. But the Satmar Rebbe in Kiryas Joel, I heard, maybe it's apocryphal, that he's sending food to the Israeli soldiers for the Sabbath so they can have their devotions. And he said, this isn't a Zionist issue, this isn't a political issue, this is a human rights issue. He said they're fighting literally Nazis. What Hamas did in ways, although on a smaller scale, with more cruelty than the Nazis. Horrific. And again, it doesn't stand for Islam. And he said, so maybe not as a Jew I support Israel, but as an American, as a human being, I recognize that the state of Israel is that, as the senator said, the one country in the Middle East where most countries there's no religious diversity at all. And there's some religious tolerance. But in Israel, they support and they encourage religious diversity. Just like what I see in my work, working to make sure and there are millions of Israeli Arab Muslims who keep their faith, they can pray 5 times a day, they can fast on Ramadan, but they're not killing innocent people, because that's not what Islam is about. And I'm very encouraged by this legislation. As someone who has maybe more, I support liberty very much. I'm afraid of big government, which is, I think, a big lesson of the Holocaust, as was mentioned by the Assemblywoman, about how it was big government that did the Holocaust, and they used eugenics, and which is part of that, and gun control and all these things, which I don't want to get too political. But this is so important in this time when they're accusing Israel. I don't even want to use that word associated with Israel, when Israel is working so hard to protect the innocent civilians. But like my family fought in World War II, no Japanese person would have died at the hands of Americans if Pearl Harbor didn't happen, and nobody in Gaza would be dying right now. Nobody should tell Israel to unilaterally make a ceasefire. They didn't start this fight, and they can welcome. They're more than happy to welcome everybody to live in a true multicultural and multi-ethnic and multi-religious state, as I saw when I spent time in seminary in the Holy Land. And I think about my brothers and sisters in the Holy Land. But I'm encouraged, because we need to have that education, because of the misinformation. People don't understand what really happened in the Holocaust, that they can dare accuse Israel of that. And so I'm encouraged that a man of God like Dr. Senator Mastriano is understanding that this lesson of history is so that we don't repeat these messages again. And then it's not just to try to encourage any type of things that go against what God wants from us and what God teaches us all throughout the scriptures. And I remember all the heroes of the Holocaust, holy martyrs like Rabbi Wasserman and Rabbi Shapiro and Rabbi Halberstam and Rabbi Halberstam's son and other survivors, and Rabbi Teitelbaum and Rabbi Gustman and Rabbi Weissmandel, great survivors who were also heroes. And the people who I knew, all those people were from before my time, I didn't see them, but the people who I knew, survivors. And the truth is, when I mentioned that the Satmar Rebbe's, he said that the people, that the Hamas, that they're Nazis. His father was in Auschwitz. I remember his father. He knows what he's talking about. He was born in the DP camps. And so, even though whatever theology we have, we might have different theologies, we might believe different things about eschatology, a person might not believe in God at all. But we can all look forward to being more educated about the past, learning, and having lessons for the future. And my sincere hope and prayer, in our liturgy today we said, Yosef Hashem Aleichem Aleichem V'Banechem, in Psalm 115, verse 14, may the Lord increase upon you, and upon your children. One of the holy Hasidic saints, the Rebbe Bzusha, said, it doesn't just mean that you should have more children, because it's already there. There's nothing superfluous in the Bible. But that when it says, may the Lord increase upon you, meaning that relationship with the Almighty should increase upon you. Whatever religion you are, you should be able to feel that. And even if you're not religious, you should find meaning in your life in your way. And I pray and hope to see that great day, as it says in Isaiah 56, verse 7, Ki beisi beis tefillah, yikori l'chol ha'amim, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the peoples. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Our next two speakers were the champions for Holocaust education in Pennsylvania, Act 70. First off, we'll have Rhonda Fink-Whitman, who led the way in making this happen and building the foundation. And after this will be Alan Silverberg. Please, Rhonda.
I'm a little shorter than I was 10 years ago. I don't know how that happened. Good afternoon, everybody. Hi. My name is Rhonda Fink-Whitman. I'm the author of a book, 94 Maidens, and it's inspired by the true events of how my own mother and grandmother survived the Holocaust and how my grandfather sadly did not. I also created this video called the Mandate video. It's on YouTube, you can see it. It's about 15 minutes long, and it's me asking Pennsylvania college students at very prestigious universities what they know or don't know about the Holocaust. And it's basically 15 minutes of I don't knows and a whole lot of incorrect answers. So that was in 2013. Fast forward to today, and it feels pretty surreal to be standing here once again, a whole decade later in our beautiful state capitol rotunda, talking to you about Holocaust education in Pennsylvania. I'm definitely having a deja vu moment. So 10 years ago, I stood on this very spot making a similar plea, because that Mandate video propelled me into being the lead advocate on Pennsylvania's Holocaust education bill, which at the time we called Act 70. We did the best we could back then, but sadly, we came up short. We were looking for a full-blown 100% mandate. We started out strong, but in the end, there was a lot of pushback, and we were forced to settle for what I call a schmandate. True, sorry. Act 70 built curriculum and trained teachers, but it left Holocaust education voluntary and optional, as it already was and as it remains today. So here we are 10 years later, 10 years older, 10 years wiser, and thanks to Senator Mastriano, we have a chance to right that wrong. May we or shall we? That's the question. Stay strong. Back in 2014, when we passed Act 70, we in the Philadelphia area had around 30-plus survivors and a couple of World War II liberators that would regularly go out into the schools in the tri-state area and speak with our students. Do you know how many we have today? Give me a guess. How many that can actually physically go to the schools and speak to the students? 3? I wish. We have 1 in the Philadelphia area. 1. 1 sole survivor who in his late 80s is still able to go out to the schools in person, visit the kids, meet the kids, shake their hands, just like Sammy, tell their stories. We do have 2 or 3 others that can still Zoom into a classroom and do it virtually. But my point is that 10 years is a long time to waste. After the passage of Act 70 in 2014, a magical thing happened. People from other states started reaching out to me and asking me to help them pass Holocaust ed bills where they live. Of course, I was only too happy to help. But imagine my embarrassment when I would show them what we did here in Pennsylvania, and I would say, you can start here, but make yours better. And they did. We had a domino effect. And since then, I helped 17 more states pass full-blown 100% mandates, and what a win for their kids. But finally now, thanks to Senator Mastriano, we finally have a chance to make ours better in Pennsylvania. By the way, let's hear it for Senator Doug Mastriano, please. My goodness. Besides being a military hero, a state senator, an author like me, do you know he has a doctorate in history? Hello? Right? He's the man. And 4, count them, 4 master's degrees. Did I read that correctly? Are you the smartest guy in every room? Especially that one where you vote and pass bills and stuff? I know you are. He is, for sure. Where's your wife? She's nodding. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So my book, 94 Maidens, is now used in schools to teach Holocaust education, and the local high school in my township where I live, the teacher has the kids read it, and then she invites me in for a Q&A. Last time I went in, a young Hispanic girl raised her hand to tell me that she used to be very impatient with certain habits and quirks that her abuela would exhibit. But after reading my book, she now has more patience with her. She's actually taking the time to hear her stories and understand her better. And she wanted to thank me for that. And do you know what that is? That's Holocaust education. Another time, at another school, a black senior came up to me to tell me that she was all in by page 20 because she said she could relate to what my family members were going through on those pages, and she was able to draw parallels to what her ancestors had gone through during slavery. Do you know what that's called? That's called Holocaust education. A 14-year-old Catholic girl in Portland, Oregon, paired up with a 90-year-old Holocaust survivor after she heard him speak at her school, and with my help, the three of us went on to mandate Holocaust education in the state of Oregon in 2019. She wrote a book about it for young readers, and it was just recently published by Little Brown and Company. Do you know what that is? Say it with me. That's Holocaust education. There's a 7th grade English teacher in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, where I live, who shows my mandate video to her students after she has taught them a unit on the Holocaust. The kids gleefully shout out the answers to my questions. They feel empowered because they know the answers, and the college kids in my video do not. The 7th graders go home and they proudly tell their parents that they're smarter than college kids. Tell me what that is. That's Holocaust education. You got this, Rebecca, or Rebbe. I have a picture here. I hope you can see this. This is of my beautiful 85-year-old mom. By the way, she's the baby here, the baby. And this is her. This is her surrounded by students just last week in South Florida, where she lives. She survived the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, the same camp that claimed the life of Anne Frank and her sister Margot. And here in the photo, you can see my mom speaking about her experiences as a 6-year-old girl in that concentration camp to a group of middle school students. Look at their faces. Look at the kids. Look at their faces. That tells you everything. This, my friends, is Holocaust education. Holocaust education is universal, it's bipartisan, and quite honestly, it's a no-brainer, right? Right. My mother, the survivor, always taught me that it's never too late to right a wrong, and this here, SB 1100, this is our opportunity. We know for a fact, and the studies have proven, that Holocaust education grows more empathetic, more tolerant, and more enlightened young adults. These days, we see a lot of unenlightenment on our college campuses and around the world. In fact, since October 7th, unenlightenment on campus has risen by 700%. That's according to Hillel International, 700%. Can I put that into context for you? If you were to buy a new $30,000 car, it would now cost you $210,000. And that's not a Bentley or a Porsche, that's a Honda Civic. I grew up in a community of survivors, like Sammy, and I used to ask them all the time if they thought another Holocaust could occur. And they always answered, yes. I found that to be shocking. I didn't understand it. I didn't believe it then, but I believe it now. Since October 7th, I see it coming down the Pennsylvania Turnpike. I really do. There's only one way to fight this scourge of hate, and it's through education. So it's time for Pennsylvania to catch up to the other 22 fully mandated US states. I have a lot more experience at this now than I did 10 years ago. And I never would have imagined that I'd be standing here today revisiting Pennsylvania's Holocaust education laws, but thanks to Doug Mastriano, the good senator, here we are. My journey has come full circle. I'm honored to be able to bring 10 more years of knowledge and experience to Senator Mastriano's table so that for Pennsylvania students, it was worth the wait. Now we can give our kids the best Holocaust education mandate because they deserve nothing less. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Senator Mastriano. From me personally, from my husband Mike, who's here with us today, from our last remaining survivors, including Sammy, my mom thanks you from Florida, and on behalf of all 100% of Pennsylvania students across the Commonwealth for being our champ, you're our champion, and introducing Senate Bill 1100 so that we can finish what we started once and for all. I believe in second chances, and I am most grateful for this one. Let's get her done. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. For Rhonda and Alan, this is like Back to the Future, huh? Dr. John Lennox, a professor of philosophy and mathematics at Oxford University, said, "New things are old things and new people." That's what I feel right now. It's new for us, but not for you guys. But let's make it new and let's make it old all the way around by getting it done. Our next speaker, of course, is Alan Silverberg, a fellow Army veteran from the 4th Armored Division, fellow Cold Warrior. Rebbe and I were the last of the Cold War generation in the 80s in Germany. Alan is the committee chair for the Holocaust Remembrance Education Program and is also a member of the Jewish War Veterans Post 697. And as you already know, he was instrumental in with the passage with Rhonda of Act 70. So please join us, sir.
So it will be a very tough act to follow. Good afternoon. This has been a very extensive program, and I will try to keep my remarks as short as possible. As mentioned, my name is Alan Silverberg. I'm the committee chairman of the Holocaust Remembrance Education Committee of the Jewish War Veterans, Post 697. We're located outside in Levittown, which is outside Philadelphia. We offer a completely free, all-year-round Holocaust education program that has been presented at public, private, parochial schools, synagogues, over 55 plus communities, libraries, municipal parks, etc. Our post has been offering this program throughout southeastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and northern Delaware since 1995. However, I've only been part of this program since, which is very close to my heart, for about 15 years. Prior to COVID, in over a 2-year period, we had over 15,000 attendees come to our program. Our main speaker, who gives us an excellent presentation, was a hidden child in Belgium and through the help of Christian institutions. His testimonies and those from other survivors are very crucial. As expressed by one student participating in one of our programs, anyone can go to a Holocaust museum, read a book, watch a movie, but not everyone gets a face-to-face experience. That is very important, so thank you for doing that. However, that is changing. Time has taken its toll. The 3 million Holocaust survivors worldwide, only 245,000 are still alive now. In the US, only 50,000 are alive, and sadly, 20% of the people think that the Holocaust was a myth. The Holocaust is the most researched subject, but there are too many Holocaust deniers. During World War II, as Senator mentioned, Dwight Eisenhower said that his soldiers should take as many pictures as possible of all atrocities, because he said, sometime in the future, some BSers would say that it never happened. There are too many deniers and too many who are uneducated. In one study that Mrs. Fink Whitman did on college campus, she asked, what was the Holocaust? One student responded, wasn't that some holiday? Another survey of Americans between 18 and 40 found that 48% could not name one concentration camp or ghetto. Holocaust education should be for all age students as well as adults who can benefit from this learning. I have to mention this. One sad example was just reported recently where the lieutenant governor of a state running for governor proclaimed that Hitler disarming millions of Jews and then marching them to concentration camps is a bunch of hogwash. I hope it's wrong. It is a well-known fact that 6 million Jews perished during the Holocaust. 6 million is such a large number, and it's hard to grasp. Think of it this way. Philadelphia has a population of 1.5 million. Quadruple that and kill every man, woman, and child. That would be 6 million. But how many of the survivors were physically, emotionally, and mentally scarred for the rest of their lives? I know my mother was. About 10 years ago, as mentioned, our prior speaker and myself and many others traveled by bus from Philadelphia to help promote the Holocaust education bill being sponsored by, at that time, State Senator Anthony Williams and Congressman Brendan Boyle, now a U.S. Senator. In fact, this is the same spot where we stood. After too much debate and too many compromises, Act 70 of 2014 was finally signed into law by Governor Tom Corbett on June 26, 2014. We were there at the time when the signing of the legislation. However, this bill was too weak. It did not mandate nor properly fund the legislation prioritizing Holocaust lessons. The instruction is mandated, but not encouraged, the State Board of Education said. It basically was saying, well, if you want to pay your taxes, you can. Pennsylvania should take a good lesson from our neighboring state of New Jersey, where it is mandated and funded, which is very important. I am very proud and honored to have been invited to participate in this program today. I want to thank Doug Mastriano for being here and presenting this. I also want to thank all the distinguished speakers. Through the Senator's new proposed legislation, deficiencies of Act 70 will be corrected. According to Act's, at least 18 states have passed bills specifically requiring Holocaust and genocide legislation. This is through the National Conference of State Legislators. Prior to 2017, just 5 states had required Holocaust education. Shortly thereafter, 13 states passed Holocaust legislation. It was then that this nation saw a spike in anti-Semitic violence, such as the Tree of Life shooting in 2018 in Pittsburgh. There has also been a 360% increase in anti-Semitic incidents recently. Recently, 800 Jewish institutions have had bomb threats. These institutions have now hired special guards and instituted other security measures. Perhaps in the future there can be a Holocaust education bill, so I hope we could continue on. To quote Holocaust survivor Eli Wiesel, there may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. Indifference is silence, and silence is consent, from then Vice President Joe Biden. We all must speak out and not be silent. Thank you all very much.
And now for our keynote speaker. Thank you, sir, for that, and thank you for your service. Sammy Steigman. Few people on earth could imagine suffering the atrocities that you've witnessed as a child. From 1941 through 1944, you, together with your parents, were in a camp. Being too young to work, Sammy was subjected to horrific Nazi medical experimentation, and then after that, it was all about survival in the camp, facing starvation and bitter cold, and many, many dying. At one point, Sammy was dying of starvation, and his life was saved by the generosity of one woman near the camp who gave him some milk. Thankfully, Sammy's camp was liberated in 1944, and Sammy now calls New York City home. We're honored to have you in Harrisburg, and please share with us your testimony for future generations. Please give it up for Sammy.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you can see, I don't have a script. I am always speaking from the heart. First of all, I want to thank, Senator Mastriano, his team, everybody else for inviting me, and also I want to thank Alexandra Levine for recommending me to speak. I not only a Holocaust survivor, I'm also a child of Holocaust survivors. At the same time, I'm a motivational speaker, I'm an educator, and I served in the Israeli Air Force 1962-1965. The Holocaust must be taught forever and ever. The main reason, in my opinion, is because the Holocaust is the best example what hate can do to a person, to a group of people, okay, to a nation, and to the world. Today, there are approximately 245,000 survivors around the world. Our numbers are dwindling. And at the same time, okay, the Holocaust, we have to remember, okay, was industrialized murder, not simple murder. And the Holocaust, unlike genocide, which a lot of people have a tendency to lump together, is the annihilation of a group from the face of the earth, not only to murder them. When we are talking, for instance, about the Holocaust, very few people know about it. Half of the world population does not know. 1/3 believe that the Holocaust is a myth or exaggeration. And young people, I can tell you, are totally clueless. I started to speak only in 2008. I have reached a lot of people because I've been able to give 6, 7 presentations in one day. I spoke to large groups of people. So I can say without exaggeration that in a short period of time, I've been able to reach about 250,000 people. But I want to tell you, there is no education in this country. There is, okay, right now what we have, instead of education, you know exactly what I'm saying. Interestingly enough, okay, what happened in October 7, okay, words cannot express my anger at the brutality of what happened in Israel. A lot of people try to compare it with the Nazis. I think this is totally uncalled for. It should be, if you want to make comparisons, with ISIS. Their cruelty was absolutely beyond imagination. Okay. I have never thought in my lifetime that I will see what I'm seeing today. And I can tell you, because I like to speak the truth the way I feel. You don't have to agree with me, just to respect that I may have a different opinion. But in some of the most prestigious campuses in this country, some of the brightest young people that we have, future leaders of this country, future leaders of the world, when they will graduate, they will become educated idiots. And we have to understand, and we have to speak the truth. When I was in a camp, I was only a year and a half, there was one thing that I have no memory of that period of time. For me, it's a blessing in disguise because I don't have to relive those horror stories every single day. At the same time, my parents did not talk about it. They wanted the children to have, but that was with most of the survivors, they wanted the children to have a normal childhood. The Holocaust survivors started to speak only in 1961 when Adolf Eichmann was abducted from Argentina, tried in Israel, and that was shown for 3 months in every country for 3 hours every single day, and use the media everywhere. Adolf Eichmann, I don't know if you know it or not, but I use him as an example of the efficiency of the Nazis to murder 11 million people in a short period of time. Adolf Eichmann, in only 2 months, towards the end of the war in 1944, deported 437,000 Hungarian Jews to their deaths. what is very important to understand is that in schools, there is indoctrination. There is no education. I was extremely surprised, pleasantly surprised when I was in Germany, when I mentioned certain things about the Holocaust. 7th graders, 8th graders knew the answers. They teach them in every school, in every class. This particular, Senate Bill 1100 is very important. It's very dear to me. There are today only 23 states that mandate, require, genocide Holocaust curriculum. But I want to tell you something, and you may be surprised. I spoke for 7 years in a row in New Jersey. By the way, New Jersey was the first state that mandated genocide Holocaust curriculum to 7th graders, 735 students. The teacher wrote a genocide Holocaust curriculum approved by the state of New Jersey, by the Holocaust Commission. And when I asked them, how many students are taking your course? He said 50. And I said, Gene, this is a state that mandates genocide Holocaust curriculum. How come only 50? And he said, it's an elective course. So we have to understand that we use words that make you feel good. But unless we have the ability, to have the policies to enforce it, it's not happening. At the same time, I'm a very strong believer that it should be a uniform, not to leave it to every school to decide I'm going to teach it for a year, I'm going to teach it for a semester, just for a few days, and everyone will teach what they want. So there has to be a uniform, and they have to start it with young people. When I speak in schools, campuses, I start with 4th graders. If you start teaching them, in the 11th grade, 12th grade, it's too late. They are already, compromised. They already, have been taught the wrong things. And one of the other things that is very important, during the Holocaust and today, it happened because the media was complicit. And we have whatever we do, whatever we want to accomplish, we have to convince the media to be with us. Without the media, nothing will happen. And I am extremely honored, humbled to be here, to be invited. I want to congratulate you, for having the courage, for doing the right thing, and introducing the bill. Senate Bill 1100. This must be, and I'm going to say it again, it must be taught forever and ever. I'm going to repeat again, and this must be repeated as often as possible. The Holocaust is not about Jews. It's a humanitarian issue. It's a universal issue. And it's the best example what Holocaust can do to a person, a group of people, a nation, and the world. We have to learn from the past. People look only what is in the present. But by learning from the past, I personally do not talk about the pain. I just go through whatever happened to me, happened, it's over. What I talk about is how did it happen? Starting with the end of World War I, when Hitler came to power, nobody paid attention to him. He had only a very small group of people, And by not responding in time, appropriately, things keep escalating to a point of no return. And I want the young people, all the changes in the world have been accomplished by young people. And I want the young people to learn from the past, to see the signs of today, that if they don't react in time and appropriately, it can escalate, and hopefully they will be able to prevent future tragedies. So again, I want to thank you, okay, for introducing the bill. And I hope that you will have the tools to enforce it, not only in public schools, but we also have private schools, okay? Not allow them to decide what to teach, how long to teach, and everything else. In my opinion, this has to be a full year, a complete curriculum, and it has to start, the curriculum must be adapted to the age, okay? But it has to start at least from 4th graders. I have spoken to 3rd graders, I've spoken to 2nd graders, and I want to tell you it's not what you say, okay? It's how you say it. And I had 2nd graders stay with me for over an hour and a half. People say they don't have the patience, okay? They stayed over an hour and a half, and they asked better questions, okay, than teenagers, because their minds were not clogged. They were not indoctrinated yet. And that's why, okay, I suggest starting at least, in my opinion, with 4th graders. Again, thank you very much. Alexandra, love you, thank you. Thank you all, thank you. It's a true honor for me to be here, and hopefully every state will mandate it, not only with your help, not only 24 states. This must be in every school. Okay. I'll just give an example in Germany, how they teach it in every school in detail. I don't know if you know it or not, but in 1917, $1 American was worth 4 German money. At the height of the inflation, in 1923, $1 American was 1 trillion. You could have a wheelbarrow full of paper money and you could not buy newspaper. Nobody wanted it. And when I mentioned that, when I asked the kids in Germany, they knew the answer. So they teach them in detail, not just skim it through or talk about the pain or whatever it is. And please do not compare what happened, in October 7 with, what happened during the Nazi time. No comparison should be made with what happened during that time. We live in different times. Those were different times. Do not call concentration camps what's happening in the South. Do not say that it's compatible with, what's happened during the Nazi time. This is a different thing. If you want to really make comparison, what happened in October 7, compare it with ISIS. It's the only, even the Nazis were not as brutal, as Hamas. And please remember one thing, the war in Gaza is not against the Palestinians. It's against a terrorist group. If they will succeed, they will not stop with Israel. They're already here. And they will go to Europe, and Israel is fighting not only for its own existence, but it's fighting for the West. And we have to know that, and we have to convince the media, to stop lying and, tell the truth. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll conclude with the words of Dr. Niemöller. Martin Niemöller was a Lutheran pastor in Germany during the rise of Hitler. Here's what he said. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, a Christian, and there was no one left to speak for me. May we never forget. And never again is now. Thank you, and God bless you. If I could have all the speakers come up here for a group shot, Chris.